Stocks, docks and barrels. This morning's Big Business Recap.
Tesla shares in the limelight again. Elon Musk may no longer be the richest person looking at the situation, but somehow Bitcoin has had to play a bit of a role, and it also came after Bitcoin faced a bit of a decline and a dip in its prices yesterday, and it was down 11% yesterday, down well below $48,000. So that could have potentially affected Tesla's shares.
Definitely. And you mentioned the richest person thing. Yeah, Elon Musk is no longer number one. It's Jeff Bezos. He's back at the top. That's right. So let's talk about the Tesla plunge. It was for some time the hottest stock in the market, for more than a year, in fact, but has been on quite a pretty steep plunge, in fact. Fell 6% yesterday and wiped out gains for the year. The stock closed at a record just above $883 on January 26, but has tumbled ever since. And looking at the current stock price at the moment, it's $698. So that has been a steep decline. Now, Tesla's stock, according to analysts, is selling off for several reasons. The first being Bitcoin. Tesla announced earlier this month that it had invested $1.5 billion in Bitcoin. That helped feed the recent rally in Bitcoin prices, and by some estimates, earned Tesla a quick $1 billion in profit, more than it has ever made from selling cars in a single year. But on Saturday, in response to a critic of Tesla's Bitcoin investment, Musk tweeted that the prices of both Bitcoin and another cryptocurrency called Ether might be excessive. Analysts say that tweet helped send the price of Bitcoin down 9.3% in trading Monday, which may have helped drag down Tesla's shares as well. Quote, an analyst says, Bitcoin is the smart move at the right time for Tesla in our opinion, but on the downside, it's playing with firecrackers, and risks and volatility are now added to the Tesla territory.
Absolutely. Well, the unusual hype is worrying central bank regulators. On Monday, we saw U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen issuing a warning about Bitcoin, calling it an extremely inefficient way of conducting transactions. Now, Bitcoin price obviously tumbled over 16% in the afternoon in tandem with Tesla shares. But according to Wedbush's star analyst Daniel Ives, saying in a note recently, he said, Musk is now tied to the Bitcoin story in the eyes of the Wall Street. And although Tesla made $1 billion paper profit in its first month owning the digital gold, it comes with added risk, as seen this week, obviously. So with Tesla kind of diving into the deep end of the pool on Bitcoin, Musk runs the risk that this sideshow can overshadow the fundamental EV vision in the near term for investors. And we saw that with shares. Tesla shares recovered slightly in midday trading Tuesday. And at press time, Tesla stock is trading at $697. That's 10% below its record high this time last month. And we also saw that Musk's net worth currently stands at $169 billion. That's but it comes after Jeff Bezos.
It does. And other factors as well that could influence the Tesla stock is the pricing of the Model Y. So last Thursday, Tesla cut the price of the cheapest version of its Model Y and best-selling Model 3 cars by $2,000 each. That brought the price for the standard range Model Y, one that can travel 244 miles on a charge, and to $38,490, and the standard Model 3 to $34,590. But over the weekend, the cheapest version of the Model Y disappeared from the Tesla sales site. This left only the more expensive long-range and performance versions of the SUV. Tesla did not explain away this decision, but analysts say this might have been a factor in the dip in the price. There's also the fact that when it comes to electric vehicles, established automakers have also been setting ambitious targets for their own EV sales. We've seen GM roll out an SUV version of its Chevrolet Bolt a week ago, priced well below Tesla's Model Y, and they also intend to sell only emission-free cars after 2035. Ford has also put forth an ambitious EV target, and even Apple is considering partnering with an automaker to get into the car business as well. we might be seeing Apple cars one day. So that's another thing. And also the fact that investors might have gotten ahead of themselves and that the money that Tesla made from the sale of regulatory credits to other automakers outpaced its overall net income. And investors are starting to catch up to that as well. The limit of electric vehicles right now, yeah.
Yeah, apart from the limits as well, it was last month when Elon Musk had said that there's a shortage of batteries needed to produce and power the electric vehicles as well. So that rose some question marks over the industry of the electric vehicles. And we've also seen, apart from the increased competition, but going back to what we'll be talking about later on in the program is to what extent has the pandemic affected our occupation. Tesla's shares in 2020, or with the start of 2020, were about $90. Now they're up to touching $700. They're $698 at close on the market. You can see how well it is struck. Now, for us, we've become accustomed to Tesla being one of the most sought-after shares. But the fact is that rise actually took place just a year ago. So we'll talk to you about that up next. Now we'll prepare for the world of sports headlines, courtesy of Imran Al-Majali. And then after that, we're continuing the discussions here in the Morning Majlis, and we're talking about what the impact of the pandemic has been on your current occupation. Because 1 in 16, according to a new study, 1 in 16 have thought of changing their occupations or their professions. Are you one of them? Are you one of those who's had to change ways? Do get involved on the text lines 4215, and it's going to be a thought-provoking conversation here on the Morning Majlis.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Morning Majlis. And we're talking about work and the effect that COVID-19 has had on our jobs. It certainly has appended that aspect of our lives, and we've tried to adapt, but a lot of questions loom about long-term prospects for the way work is going to change forever post-pandemic. We've seen, for instance, how the pandemic has normalized remote work. Questions on what that will mean, what it means as well to go back to an office, how that is set to change in the future, and what impact hybrid working could have on the way we communicate, connect, and create as well. The other thing, too, is what's going to happen to people who can't work from home, who can't work remotely. And we've also seen a number of trends that had been on the up prior to the pandemic that had accelerated during the pandemic. Does that make some people more likely to lose their jobs to robots, to AI? Those are the questions we'll be discussing this segment.
That's right. The McKinsey Global Institute, the research arm of management consultants McKinsey, has released a report this week that aims to answer all these questions. Instead of considering types of jobs by sector, the company grouped 800 occupations according to how many interactions with other people they involved and assessed how they might be affected. So the report looked at 8 different countries, accounting for half the world's workplace, including China, France, Germany, India, Japan, Spain, the UK, and the US. So this is what's going to happen in the workplace, the changes that might be here to stay. Up to 100 million workers, that is 1 in every 16, in those 8 countries featured, are set to have to look not just for new jobs, but they're going to have to look for new occupations. Now, in advanced economies, a quarter more people will have to change their field of work than predicted before the pandemic, with what they're saying, a markedly different mix of occupations emerging. Now, McKinsey said, we expect the largest negative impact of the pandemic to fall on workers in food service and customer sales and service roles, as well as less skilled office support roles. Meanwhile, there will be more warehousing and transport jobs, thanks in part to a growth in e-commerce. But this will not cancel out losses of other low-wage jobs. McKinsey also forecasts a lasting increase in the number of independent workers, with the gig economy accounting for a greater share of the workforce.
Now, the McKinsey report says the office work and hospitality industry is going to be the most impacted by the outbreak, especially the leisure and travel venues, which includes hotels and restaurants, on-site customer interaction. They're seeing the most upheaval, both in short and long term. Now, if I were to use the Abdul hospitality industry analysis in the United Arab Emirates. I went down to the famous mall yesterday, right? The world's largest mall.
Dubai Mall.
Yeah, and I went down there and I looked at the venue. Yes, it was less crowd at the mall, going out shopping, and I wanted to buy a pair of board shorts and I couldn't afford it as pricey. I was like, whoa, charging me too much.
Yeah.
But then when I looked at the restaurants, they were full. You know, they were busy, people eating out. So what McKinsey is saying, the hospitality industry is going to be most affected by it. Here in the United Arab Emirates, we're seeing a different sort of approach. It's the opposite. People like eating out more, and people love doing those experiences. It seems, I might be wrong, I'm just generalizing based on a single visit, it's not a massive sample survey at all, that people, instead of spending on their clothes or spending on extra things, they're spending on their own experiences.
But see, there's another point as well, that just like McKinsey reported, that people are so dependent now on e-commerce. So obviously, I think that is the compensation for it, I believe. Now everybody is depending on online shopping, especially for their clothes and all of that, and electronics and so on and so forth. But for the restaurants, you just have to have that experience of being in a restaurant, and especially now in the UAE. I mean, the outdoor experience, it's something that we have to take advantage of.
I do think it's
good weather.
It's definitely something that's deeply ingrained within the country and the culture here, and it's something that everybody does. I mean, you ask any family, how often do you eat out? You have so many options to pick from, so many cuisines, and sometimes groceries can be a little expensive. You're feeling a bit lazy. You're just like, okay, we might as well just eat out for the day. So, plus the population here is relatively young. People like to go out here.
True.
There are lots of things to do. So it's very, very tempting to do so, and really cool that this part of the industry is still thriving and doing fairly well. And they're practicing the safety precautions. The authorities have been very strict on enforcing those.
And just this whole shift in e-commerce is like the new norm, I believe.
The new normal, yeah.
Like before I used to hear so many of my friends, they would say, we're going out to the mall, we're going to go shopping, we're going to go buy clothes, we're going to go buy this. Yeah. I don't hear that anymore. It's all about, where did you get this from? What online platform did you get this from? You know what I mean? Like, oh, I got this from this place online. True. I got this from Instagram. I got this from this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's all about online. It's all about e-commerce now. Nobody is depending, I mean, not nobody, but it's much
changed.
Less.
The perception has changed, hasn't it? And it's really interesting to see what's going, what's been happening. People are doing the staycations a lot more. People, to an extent, are doing those glamping experiences a bit more as well. They're pricey. Yeah. They don't come cheap, mind you. But people are doing it because they want experience, because they're not spending money on their flights and travels, because here in this part of the world, people love traveling as well.
Right.
But based on McKinsey report, obviously it's looking at the whole world as a holistic approach. So understandable that sandwich shops are going to be affected, the restaurants and venues are affected, because in places like the UK, for example, you still can't eat out, can't go to these venues, only delivery. So you can stand in terms of what they are looking at. But some people, and especially in the events industry in the United Arab Emirates, we've had a massive gig economy here. There's a lot of people who've now sadly had to move on from the world of events to a bit more of a corporate role, a bit more of a sustainable, long-term full salaried professionals now. So that's going to be a little change that we're seeing. Let us know on the text lines 4215 how your work has been impacted by the COVID-19 scenario and situation. Are you looking at shifting professions? Are you looking at maybe exploring a new job? Are you one of those looking for work green circle people on LinkedIn's?
Let me ask you this. If you had to shift your job, what would the shift be?
Air Force pilot.
Really?
Wanted to be an Air Force pilot.
I
can't. I'm wearing glasses. Look at that.
I wouldn't shift it. Would you?
No.
It's pretty interesting because I'm reading this report as well, and they're talking about the impact of COVID-19 on lower income workers as well, because they don't have the luxury of working from home as an option, and they have a higher exposure to COVID-19 as well. So I'd be interesting to hear from the audience. If you're out there, just text us at 4215 and let us know, are you satisfied with your job now as you were before the pandemic? Do you see a change in your job security? Do you see yourself heading in a different direction career-wise? That's a conversation that we're certainly interested in having. The text line is open, 4215.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Well, we were talking about travel, right?
Yeah.
And we're saying we don't go out anymore, but some people decided to do that, and it was Imran Khan.
Well, it's part of his job. But that should not end
Yeah,
for him.
well, he just did it. I mean, it's gone to a very nice country too.
Yeah.
So what we do know is Prime Minister Imran Khan arrived in Sri Lanka on a 2-day visit to the country on the invitation of Mahinda Rajapaksa, who is Sri Lanka's Prime Minister. This is his first visit to Sri Lanka after assuming the office of the Prime Minister. Of course, he's been to Sri Lanka multiple of times, whilst being a cricketer for sure. And when he arrived, it was a pretty interesting arrival as well. He was received by the Sri Lankan counterpart with a guard of honor, and was also introduced to the members of the Sri Lankan cabinet.
Prime Minister Imran Khan and Rajapaksa then held a one-on-one meeting at Temple Trees, the official residence of the Sri Lankan Prime Minister. And it was followed by delegation-level talks between Imran and Rajapaksa, according to the former's office. But in a tweet, the Sri Lankan Prime Minister said, "I warmly welcome Prime Minister Imran Khan of Pakistan, who is on his maiden visit to Sri Lanka, and I look forward to interacting with the Prime Minister and his delegation on matters of mutual interest to both our nations."
That's right. And Imran Khan also pitched the China-Pakistan economic corridor as a connectivity booster in Colombo during his 2-day visit that had started yesterday. He said it would be, a quote, a way and means to enhance trade and connectivity with the country, and said that China is part of the One Belt and Road Initiative of China, and it's one of the flagship programs, the CPEC. He said it would help enhance Sri Lanka's connectivity right up to Central Asia, and that trade ties would bring Pakistan and Sri Lanka closer together. They also discussed a broad range of areas and acknowledged opportunities for mutually beneficial collaborations in areas in investment, IT, human resource development, agriculture, science and technology, security and defense cooperation, and culture and tourism as well.
Yep, of course, and that is the situation in with these. Because they're looking at free trade agreement as well, and what we do know is that things are getting slightly better. I'm observing the reactions there as well. Sri Lanka's main newspaper, Daily Mirror, also coming up with the big headlines, quoting the Mahinda Rajapaksa's statement, saying Pakistan a close and a genuine friend. They're looking at enhancing bilateral cooperation in the areas of trade, defense, science and technology, and looking at the agreements under the framework of the free trade agreement. He also thanked Pakistan for opening up the corridor for Sri Lankan pilgrims to visit the ancient and Buddhist sites in Pakistan. And so that is an interesting approach as well to see what is happening. But for the time being, we also know that travel between those two countries have also improved because of the better facilities, for example, for Sri Lankan passport holders to travel to Pakistan as well. Well, stay with us on the Morning Majlis. We shall be returning right after the news headlines, and then we'll be talking about innovation, because this is the month of innovation. If we've not forgotten about it, this is the month of February. And then we'll also talk about new people starting a podcast. Everyone's starting a podcast. Why are they starting a podcast? Don't understand. But then, yes, they're popular. Stay with us. This is the Morning Majlis on Pulse 95.
Pulse 95.
The Morning Majlis, talking the stories that are shaping headlines. This is Pulse 95.
Multiple leg injuries is what has been reported for Tiger Woods after his car crash in Los Angeles. The county sheriff's department has released a statement that it responded to a single vehicle rollover accident in which the vehicle sustained major damage. But the 15-time golf major champion, who's 45 years of age, had to be extricated from the wreck by the firefighters and paramedics.
Yeah, Woods was actually transported by ambulance to the nearby Harbor UCLA Medical Center where he underwent surgery. And the LA Times also later reported that Woods' injuries included a shattered ankle and 2 leg fractures, one of which was a compound fracture. His injuries are not thought to be life-threatening, though. But according to the first LA County deputy to respond to the scene, Carlos Gonzalez, he said that Woods was calm and lucid despite being trapped inside the SUV. He said the nature of his vehicle, the fact that he was wearing his seatbelt, I would say it greatly increased the likelihood it saved his life. I've been doing this for a while and I've seen fatal traffic collisions. So I will say it's very fortunate that Mr. Woods was able to come out of this alive.
Especially, looking at the harrowing photographs of this car accident. Tiger Woods, we'll talk about how this happened, but Tiger Woods is one of the best golfers of all time. He won 15 major championships, one of the most celebrated sports figures. He was driving this car alone when it crashed around 7:12 a.m. Near the suburban communities of Rolling Hills Estates and Rancho Palos Verdes, according to the sheriff's department. What happened essentially was his vehicle swerved into the roadside curb, hit a tree, and then there were several rollovers before the SUV came to rest. According to the sheriff said the stretch of roadway, known for its sloping terrain and curves, has a, quote, high frequency of accidents. The sheriff also said the distance the vehicle traveled before leaving the roadway, leaving no visible skid marks, pointed to the car, quote, going at a relatively greater speed than normal, and said a hydraulic tool known as the jaws of life was used to pry Woods from the wreckage where he had been stuck. Yes, he was clear lucid, but said he could not stand up and now requires multiple leg surgeries, including treatment for his crushed ankle, according to reports.
Yeah, reports from the sheriff's office also say that Woods was traveling at a high speed down a hilly part of the road. However, there were no skid marks or other indications of braking. And what we do know is that the front of the Genesis SUV courtesy vehicle has now
My dream car.
That's quite badly damaged at the moment. When they did extricate him from the vehicle, Tiger Woods was put in a neck collar, attached leg splints, and used a backboard to get him through the giant hole in the windshield to an ambulance. He was sent to the hospital in serious but stable conditions with injuries to both legs. Now, Tiger Woods was taking part in the PGA event in the area, but he didn't play because of a recent back surgery. And when it comes to injuries, they've not been very friendly to Tiger Woods. He's had multiple injuries throughout his later part of the career that saw him out of action for quite some time. And sadly, this fatal crash. But we're glad that it wasn't fatal. In fact,
exactly. Yeah.
It wasn't. It didn't claim his life, and it has. And the injuries are also not life-threatening because the extent of the damage to that Genesis SUV, you'd think. It's a miracle that he's survived that.
Yeah, my heart stopped when I saw the pictures. It's absolutely a harrowing photo of the car as well. Yeah. Now, just 10 minutes ago, in fact, Tiger Woods has tweeted on his account, people tweeting on his behalf, likely his family, saying, "We thank everyone for the overwhelming support and messages during this tough time." They said Tiger is awake at the moment in the hospital, responsive and recovering. There's also a statement on the Twitter page from the chief medical officer at the medical center saying Woods suffered significant orthopedic injuries to his right lower extremity. that were treated during the emergency surgery, and that both upper and lower portions of the tibia and fibula bones were stabilized. The ankle and foot were also stabilized with a combination of screws and pins, and there's no further update at the moment on the prospect for long-term recovery.
Well, we're hoping that it does get better, but so far the generic headlines that do appear is that his legendary career is now potentially going to be in jeopardy. We hope it doesn't, and that's why with that, so we just hope that things do get better for them. Well, stay with us on Pulse 95. Lots of music is lined up for you. The Morning Majlis crew will now depart and be back again tomorrow morning with more Thursday vibes. But if you wanted to catch up with some of the discussions that we've had over the last 3 hours on the show, then there's only a few places that you can check out.
That's right. The audio discussions will be up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and SoundCloud, and you can also watch the video discussions or watch it in video through YouTube. Just type in Pulse 95 Radio and look for the Morning Measures playlist. And don't forget to subscribe, share, and like.
Absolutely. Thank you all for tuning in to today's show. Stay tuned to Pulse 95.
If you liked this episode of The Morning Majlis, drop a like and subscribe.
95.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram for all our daily updates and top stories.
Pulse.